You are trapped in an endless underground passageway. Observe your surroundings carefully to reach exit 8. Don't overlook any anomalies. If you find anomalies, turn back immediately. If you don't find anomalies, do not turn back.
To go out from exit 8.
This is the premise to the indie horror game Exit 8, which describes itself as a short walking simulator inspired by Japanese underground passageways, liminal spaces, and backrooms. And it's just that, a walking simulator where you find anomalies and try to escape from this MC Escher-esque hell. The anomalies themselves vary. It could be as simple as a door going missing to something as weird as Wall Man. The bright white walls, the hubbuzz of the fluorescent lights, and the deafening echo of footsteps create such an uneasy atmosphere. What also makes it interesting is that there's no outright story. There's no preamble explaining how you ended up in that passageway, no cutscenes, not even a little title card. You're just there. To start this analysis off, I'd like to highlight two different psychological studies that I feel are important to understanding Exit 8. Both the game and the movie, starting with when you think of the color white. Yes, I know white isn't a color, but the combination of all colors just into one. Just bear with me on this. What do you think of? Snow? Purity? Cleanliness? Yeah, I'd say that's about pretty normal. Now, what about the color yellow? Happiness? Lemons? Praise the sun! Again, pretty normal. These two colors typically have a lot of positive connotations, especially when combined together. Think like angels with white robes and yellow halos, daisies with the white petals and the little yellow centers. Egg. However, when you look at things through the lens of horror. Jesus Christ, I can't say it. Okay, I'm just gonna start calling it scary stuff. When you look at things through the lens of scary stuff, you'll begin to see that these colors aren't as innocent as we think. Let's start with white. In my research over color theory and scary stuff, I found a website called Slow Burn Scary Stuff, a hub for essays, fiction, and images based on the kinds of scary stuff that makes your skin crawl, and is interested in creative critical pieces about what makes slow burn scary stuff work. Under the category of symbolism, they have breakdowns over color theory and scary stuff, and I'd like to highlight some of the things they point out about white and yellow. Starting with white, they compare and contrast our expectations with the color and bring to light the inversion of the scary stuff of the color. Expectation. White is good and pure and innocent. Black is bad and evil and corrupting. Introversion. White is terror and isolation. Expectation. In light, there is safety. Introversion. In light, there is nowhere to hide. Expectation. A clean white room is a safe room. Introversion. In whiteness, we are vulnerable. Now, I want to pause here for a second because this specific point ties back into Exit 8. The underground passageway is, save for the doors, vents, posters, etc., stark white. There's a form of torture mostly associated with the Middle East known as white room torture. According to an article from the International Journal of Psychiatric Nursing, specifically the 2023 Volume 9, Number 1 issue, the victim is garbed in white clothing and sealed in a room where each and everything, including the floor, walls, ceiling, and all furniture and fixtures, are painted white in color. White walls, white bed, white floor, white clothing, white light. Everything shall be in white. In this prolonged state, the prisoner can succumb to auditory and visual hallucinations. And what do we see in Exit 8? An infinite hallway of white floors, white walls, and white ceilings. While it's not exactly the fault of all the white present in the passageway, the protagonist of the film does seem to experience these hallucinations, and it inadvertently causes him to doubt his beliefs, causing him to fail certain run-throughs of the game, air quotes. Further prolonged exposure can eventually cause a lapse in memory or even permanent memory loss. Let's move on to yellow. In scary stuff, yellow has many different connotations. Unlike white, where it was being compared and contrasted, slow burn scary stuff paints yellow as only having mostly negative interpretations. It's the color of corpses, inescapable death and noxious claustrophobia, greed and moral rot, anxiety and caution. However, yellow can be used as a symbol of hope in scary stuff as well, and it's kind of used that way in Exit 8. We think of yellow as joy, much like white is associated with purity, when in actuality, yellow activates the part of the amygdala that incites anxiety. According to the director of Wagner Institute for Color Research, Carlton Wagner, in infants, yellow results in crying. In adults, it results in shortness of temper. And that's exactly what happens. As soon as the protagonist sees the yellow-lit passageway after failing Exit 5, he loses his shit. Like, all the hope he had for escaping was suddenly gone. I want to also highlight the score for this scene, as it's titled Yellow, and it accentuates the dread the protagonist is feeling. I'll see if I can get away with playing a snippet of it. Speaking of music, I want to quickly talk about the quote-unquote main theme of the movie adaptation of Exit 8, Bolero by Maurice Ravel. I thought it was an odd choice for the movie until I looked up the definition of bolero on Merriam-Webster. According to Merriam-Webster, a bolero is a Spanish dance characterized by sharp turns, stamping of the feet, and sudden pauses in a position with one arm arched over the head. A dance characterized by sharp turns, you say? In a movie about sharp turns. From a game about sharp turns. I don't know, I thought it was pretty funny after the fact. Okay, now to move on to the other aspect of the film. MC Escher and the psychology of labyrinths. Hi, Sam from the future here. So I ran into a bit of a snag when I was working on this video. This next section was supposed to be about MC Escher and the psychology of labyrinths. Well, my copyright request failed, and I couldn't get the permission to use the works by MC Escher that I was going to talk about. So instead, I'm going to be talking about Carl Jung and his idea of labyrinths and how it ties into Exit 8, the movie. Sorry. Before we jump into this section, I want to go over a little Greek mythology. How many of you know the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur? Well, for those who don't, here's a quick crash course. Born from the union of Pasiphae, wife of King Minos, and a bull gifted to Minos by Poseidon, the Minotaur was a monster with the body of a man and the head of a bull, and was banished to a labyrinth created by Daedalus. To satisfy the beast's hunger, Minos made a deal with Athens to deliver 7 youths and 7 maidens as prey for the Minotaur every 9 years. In return, Athens wouldn't face further sanctions by Crete. One of these future sacrifices was Theseus, the son of Aegeon, the ruler of Attica. Upon his arrival, Ariadne, the daughter of Minos, fell in love with Theseus. Not wanting to see her love perish at the hands of the Minotaur, she gave Theseus a ball of thread to unravel behind him so he could easily escape. Upon encountering the Minotaur, Theseus would slay the beast and exit the labyrinth victorious, thus saving future Athenians from being sacrificed. Famed Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist Carl Jung found himself deeply fascinated with the idea of a labyrinth, praising its psychological significance. For Jung, navigating the labyrinthian psyche was important in the quest for wholeness and meaning, as well as his idea of individuation. For those who don't know what individuation means, it's essentially the process of merging conscious beliefs with the unconscious mind, your shadow, the anima, animus, and the many archetypes as created/stated by Jung, as well as separating your true self from familial, social, and cultural conditioning to achieve wholeness, potential, and finding your life's purpose. So why is this important or even relevant to Exit 8? Well, let's dive into the movie to explain that. Save for the introduction, the movie is broken up into 3 parts. Chapter 1, The Lost Man. Chapter 2, The Walking Man, and Chapter 3. I forgot to write the name of this chapter, so I'm going to call it The Child. Let's start with the introduction, because without context, the ending doesn't make sense. Much like any movie, Sam. Starting from a first-person point of view, our protagonist stares out the train door window listening to Bolero by Maurice Ravel. He gets a call from his ex and hangs up. He's then suddenly brought back to the real world because he hears a crying baby. A haggard office worker chews out the mother of the baby and tells her to shut the baby up. The train stops and our protag gets off. He gets another call from his ex and decides to answer it this time. She tells him that she's at the hospital because she's pregnant and doesn't know what to do. Our protagonist starts to kind of freak out about it, but tells her he'll head straight to the hospital to be with her. He turns into a passageway and his call starts cutting out. And he walks. And walks. And walks some more. Boom. Chapter 1 starts as he realizes he's looped through the underground passageway a few times. We're taken out of the first-person point of view and into a third-person point of view as we, the audience, follow our protag's journey to find Exit 8. If we take a look at this from Jung's understanding of labyrinths, this is the start of the lost man's descent into his own psyche, his own personal hell, wandering aimlessly as he encounters different scary stuffs, starting with the walking man stalking his movements and smiling this forced, crooked smile. On the next loop, the walls begin to bleed. On another loop, there's subway lockers full of crying babies. And another loop, the posters on the walls follow him, walking up and down the hall, some even turning their heads. These anomalies are essentially Ariadne's thread, or the clue, needed to navigate the unconscious without getting lost, often tied to consciousness, guidance, or the ego's connection to reality. So, once the lost man reaches Exit 5, he receives a call from his ex, and they discuss further what they're going to do about the pregnancy. He begins tearing up as he tells his ex what a coward he was on the train, how he heard the haggard office worker chew out the mother and her crying child, but willingly chose not to intervene or stand up to the douchebag. If he couldn't do something as simple as that, there's no way in hell he could be a father. Call ends and he proceeds forward, only to find the sign to read Exit 0. And the hallway lit a dark, suffocating yellow. He throws his bag to the ground and begins to sob uncontrollably. This is the start of his transformation. After picking himself up, he heads back and reaches Exit 1, only to find a young boy standing in the middle of the hallway. We've now reached Chapter 2, The Walking Man. This was probably one of the more interesting parts of the movie because it dives into how the walking man with the briefcase ended up in this loop, and he's there with the child. This chapter brings up the mention of purgatory. In Catholic doctrine, purgatory is essentially a plane of joyful suffering. Kinda sounds like an oxymoron. And in some interpretations, purgatory is a place of trials to overcome so you can eventually reach heaven, free from your sins. If this passageway is purgatory, then this chapter shows what happens if you fail your trials. You essentially become trapped in a hell of your own making. And that's exactly what happened to the walking man, a victim of a toxic work environment, racked with guilt, chose selfishly instead of listening to the child, resulting in him becoming nothing more than a new anomaly for someone else's trial. Chapter 3, The Child. Going back to the Jungian understanding of labyrinths, this chapter serves as the lost man's confrontation of the shadow, or the minotaur of the labyrinth. Instead of a monster, it comes in the form of a child. On one of the loops, a woman in a white dress stands in the middle of the hallway. Almost immediately, the boy runs straight for her, yelling out, "Mom! Mom!" The lost man stops the child from going to the woman because he knows it's just another anomaly. You can't get a very good look at the woman, but from what you can tell, the woman looks a lot like how the lost man's ex is depicted in the movie. A woman with long dark hair and a white dress, or gown, or something. After going back and reaching the next exit, the two sit down and talk. It's in this scene that it finally clicked. As they talk, the boy reveals he purposely got lost from his mother just so she could come looking for him. Lost man asks the child if he has a father. He says yes, but he left before he even knew him. The lost man said the exact thing happened to him as a child. It was almost like he was looking at a mirror of his child self. They pick themselves up and move on to the next exit. And it's on exit 6 that a flash flood happens. They begin to leave, but the kid trips. Instead of abandoning him like the walking man did, he saves the child by putting him on top of the exit 8 sign. However, the lost man gets swept away. And here, the lost man reaches the center of the labyrinth in his psyche. It's him and his ex together on a beach, with the child playing on the shore. Instead of chickening out, he decides to embrace being a father. The child calls out to the lost man, not as a stranger, but as a son calling out to his father. Cut to black, fade up, and we see the aftermath of the flood, and the child walks away in the wrong direction. After a minute, the lost man shows up and heads backwards to progress to exit 7. Exit 7 is normal, so he progresses forward. Finally, he reaches exit 8, the end of his labyrinth. I guess his rebirth. He calls his ex and tells her he's on his way and hops on a train. He puts in his earbuds and starts listening to Bolero. A baby can be heard crying, and a haggard office worker starts chewing out the mother. It's the opening scene all over again. And instead of ignoring it, the lost man turns to the left and then cut to black, insinuating that he went to go defend the mother from the douchebag. He is no longer lost. This is a movie about overcoming your shadows, the things you keep repressed and hidden so they don't eat away at you. Everyone struggles. Everyone has things that eat away at them. For the lost man, it was being a father. He didn't have a father growing up, so he didn't know what it meant to be a father. His fear overtook him, and instead of taking responsibility, he shut down and got lost in his own labyrinth. By saving the child, he was able to defeat his minotaur and come to realize that he has what it takes to be a father, to stand up for what's right, and to not be afraid. So, if you find yourself lost, look for the clues and find your exit 8. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.